So thank you for attending this press conference. So in the past couple of days, we've seen a pathetic opposition getting a bit excited. Now, they could not excite the people of the country based on their past performance, their achievements. They're trying desperately to get away from the baggage, the image of racism that has been a bedrock of the PNC and AFC, and from the baggage of rigged elections to stay in power, which they've always done to get into power and stay in power for a very long time. So they've jumped now on an issue that they think might bring them some support or at least some attention from the public, because most people in Guyana have started ignoring the opposition. They're so inconsistent with their views. They have no plan for the future, and that has been demonstrated. And people are aware that they have no capability of implementing any plan should one land on their head from out of space. They have no capability of implementing it, as they've demonstrated in the past. So they're hoping to get some relevance. And how best to do this than to mischaracterize an engagement that the head of state had with a number of people in government with a defined purpose to fit into their framework what they are saying to their supporters on the ground. That one, that engagement that President Ali had earlier this week, that it is evidence of widespread corruption. Two, that it demonstrates incompetence and no planning in government. And three, that we're not in control. Now, I will take each of these issues that they have raised and deal with them separately. But for the Guyanese public to really understand what took place at that engagement that was live streamed with the president and some public officials, they have to understand the context of what we are trying to achieve in this country. And a bit about how we have transitioned from a dodo government, from a useless government for 5 years, into one that has been liberal with its promises to the people of the country, but has worked diligently to fulfill all of those promises. And so we can easily go back to look at the context. What was the preoccupation of the Granger administration and ministers in that period? Granger was absent from the ground. He never consulted with people on the ground. He never visited communities. At his own event, at a rally, where people sought to take pictures with him, they had to do so with a cardboard cutout image of him. He had no engagement with people on the ground. was not concerned about their daily problems, the loss of jobs, massive loss of jobs, the loss of welfare, the lack of money in circulation that we heard in that period from so many communities, the deteriorating state of infrastructure in many of these communities. The farmers were told by him directly, that's private business, don't look for government help. That was the president himself. Missing, not in charge. He said he didn't even see the ExxonMobil contract that was signed by Trotman. In the Clyde and Company report, that is what they said. He didn't even see that. Aloof, not concerned about the welfare of the citizen, and something as fundamental as the renegotiations of the oil and gas contract that APNU AFC did, that is now the subject of such a big controversy in the country. He didn't even pay attention to that. So that was from the president. What were the ministers preoccupied with? So there was a great deal of arrogance. You couldn't even talk to them. Aloofness, again. I've recounted experiences where people who grew up with some of these ministers, having gone to them, like one person said to me that he went to see a particular minister, known him his entire life, they grew up together, etc. They did lots of things together. And the person said to him, he called him by the name that they usually call each other. And he said, no, that's not it. It's Mr. Minister now. That was the kind of arrogance and attitude that they had. And even supporters of that party. I had cases where people from Region 1, some of them, the central leaders, stayed in the people's homes when they were campaigning pre-2015. And they forgot all about them. They came after the elections. The people came to Georgetown to see them and they couldn't even recognize them. Had them sitting all day outside. So that was the era. What were they concerned about? Signing privileges at restaurants. If you look through how many ministers had signing privileges for food, massive bills, couple of $100,000 that routinely they signed off on. They were concerned with the number of vehicles and the type of vehicles they had. We've seen that before. You recall the foreign medical program that they had for themselves and their families. They couldn't go to get health care in Guyana for themselves and their families. The state had to pay for them to go to Ireland for health care for themselves and their families. This was changed, of course, when we got into office. We've seen ministers awarding contracts to themselves routinely, and it wasn't just CATIUs. There have been, if you go through my press conferences as leader of the opposition, I exposed several ministers doing that. The land to themselves and family. Up to a few weeks ago, I spoke about land didn't go to ordinary people. In Linden, for example, it went to MPs and their families. They helped for business development through the SLED program. Did it go to ordinary people? No, it went to the members of parliament. One was given $165 million to distribute. Others got it for chairs in a barber shop and pigsties and all of these things for themselves. And this is the sort of thing that they were preoccupied with. 50% salary increase for themselves, increase in their pension. Where did ordinary people figure out or fit in to their priorities? That was the kind of government we came from. We came from a government where capital expenditure in each of the years that they were in office was lower than in 2014. And capital expenditure is is the medium through which you build roads, schools, hospitals, sea defenses, etc. That was not their priority. On the other hand, the recurrent budget grew massively. Food in government grew by over $1.6 billion. The number of rental for buildings over $1 billion. I can go down a long list of things that did not matter to ordinary people. That is the type of government that we came from. We lost jobs in every sector. We had higher taxes. We saw a massive loss of welfare. The pensioners lost their water subsidy. The children lost their money, the 10,000 grant. I can enumerate a ton of things there. That's where we came from. And now look at the contrast. We came into office after they attempted to steal the elections with the country shut down totally. COVID. The first year and a half, 2 years, struggling to keep our people safe. But look at the achievements in 4 years of the PPP government, starting from scratch. Patterson did some corrupt feasibility studies for the Demerara Bridge that we couldn't use, the bridge across the Demerara River and the Wismar Bridge. We've actually got the design done. In this justice period, we got the design done, we got the money raised, and we got the contract awarded, and the bridge is under construction and will be completed next year. That's the difference. 5 years, corrupt feasibility study, that's what happened. In Linden, the same thing has happened. We've now awarded a 4-lane bridge to cross the river there. And it's the construction starting soon. Not just feasibility studies, but actually people would be able in a couple of years to drive on this next year across this bridge. It's done. The gas to energy project, and I'll come back to that later because I saw Patterson made some comments about the buying power. But that project alone, to get it going, I told you already, even before we went to tender, as vice president of this country, I had more than 85 meetings with a task force made up of people from Exxon and the government of Guyana, multi-agency task force, to just get it to the point where we could tender for it, dedicating my time, because that is a complex project. We had to do a number of things to get it to that stage. It's awarded through a public tender. We raised the money, and it's under construction. It will be completed. They said, oh, it's delayed a bit, but it's moving now. So we have a problem. We identify the problem. No power plant, not enough power in the system, cheap power, which is crucial for the future, that they did nothing to help with because they killed their Myla Fall. We're fixing it. We have worked hard to get that done. And in these just 4 years, it's moved forward. We have awarded 150 kilometers of 4-lane roads in Berbice, in Region 4 from Mahaica to Georgetown, from Crane to the bridge, and from Georgetown all the way to Busby Dam there. And I didn't even count the other feeder roads that are 4-lane roads too. Over 150 kilometers of 4-lane road. What did Patterson do? in that period. What did they do on main roads? They completed the East Coast Road that was left by the PPP government, the main road. They did the same thing on West Coast. That was a project from the PPP government. Even the Linden-Soos-Dyke Highway, they did not advance it. We now are paving the road from Linden to all the way to Soos-Dyke. Now the contract has been awarded, that has started. I didn't even count that as part of the 4-lane road. If you've gone to every community in this country, throughout Guyana, the landscape has changed with community roads. You go there and you will see that's over 3,000 projects implemented successfully that has changed people's lives. And we did it with concrete now, because if we had gone to asphalt, we'd probably done 10 kilometers of road rather than maybe 2,000 kilometers in these community roads. And multiple contractors, nearly 2,000 small contractors have been working at this, and the majority of them are doing a good job. Majority. That has done. Change the landscape. This is the 4 years. So, coming from a government that was not focused on anything to getting this done, what else did we do? I didn't even speak about the 45 other bridges that we're building on the way to Letem. That has been done, that have been awarded and under construction. How many schools, new schools have we built and rehabilitated? Nearly 30 of these across the country, and a large number rehabilitated. We're working, I'm running through things. We're working now to create a digital society. That's behind the scene work that you don't even see, that would result in a paperless airport soon, e-security for the country, better services to the citizens of Guyana. You have 9 new hotels that started and are under construction in just the 4 years we've been in office, including the 2 years under COVID. We now have 50,000 people who are studying, paid for by the government of Guyana. They couldn't even get a scholarship under the last government, because guess who got it? The ministers and their children. We've spent $230 billion on developing 40,000 house lots for ordinary people. You think it's easy to do that? And you think it's just one contract you do it with? So there have been about, maybe, if you look at it cumulatively, maybe 40, 50,000 contracts that have been done since we got into office, that a majority of which have been completed. People are driving on the Heroes Highway. Okay, it's a little bumpy, they say, complain a bit. It's driving on the Heroes Highway, or from Crane to the Harbor Bridge, or the communities you drive across Guyana and you see it, you feel it. That's happened already. It's happening. So we have made it, this is what they would like to tell you, that the 40 projects or so that the president was dealing with, just about 40 projects there that had been delayed a bit over 4 months, that is the prevailing condition of the state of contracting in the country. They've ignored all that we have said before, ignored it totally, about the 95% of the contracts being completed on time with good contractors. The public servants have worked very hard, including permanent secretaries, engineers, etc., who have done this. The ministers have worked very hard to get this done, because it required an activist form of government, not dodo ministers who are only concerned about themselves, but who've been pushing. A lot of the ministers, the permanent secretaries, the engineers, the technical staff have worked hard, and the politicians and our government have worked hard to ensure that that has happened. that we have a changed landscape, that we're working on the legal side to improve the framework for oil and gas, or putting in place the framework for condominiums, or passing a new law for privacy, which would be required when we have a unique and a patient management recording system, an electronic one that you can use across institutions. All of that's happening. The 12 new hospitals that we're building, 8 of which are under construction now, weren't there when APNU was there. They didn't even start planning for them. And you're telling me that the president was dealing with 40 specific projects that had some delay. He was concerned about it, and that shows no planning or inefficiency. Who is inefficient and who lacks planning? This government had the last government had no plan whatsoever. They couldn't even implement basic stuff, not even a community road. And you're comparing that with what we have done about planning. In every sector, we have a clear vision of what we want to accomplish. Every sector, for diversification in agriculture, what kind of growth we want to see in the services industry, in hospitality industry, the type of training we need to do, in the expansion of healthcare for our people, the training of people, hospital management, apart from building that. I can go down the list. In every sector, we have a master plan and we're working according to it. And the president meeting showed no planning because it focused on a small subset of issues that we're dealing with. And it shows incompetence on the part of the government and the ministers. A lot of these ministers are driving the process within their ministries too. What you see there happens all the time in government because we care. Because we care. We push people all the time. The ministers push their staff just like the president pushes the minister. They push their staff. The permanent secretaries push their staff too. People push each other here because we care. We want to see the best for the people of this country. And we're not going to just ignore the 5% that have not been done well, shoddy work, etc., and just to create an impression that, at a meeting that everything is good. We are not going to ignore that. I said right here that whilst 95% are going well and survey of the contracts, done well, no corruption, proper work, etc., being done by people, we're going to laser in on the 5% where we have problems too. We're going to focus on those because the government, you can't get to perfection in this situation, but we're not going to ignore the concerns of people. So let me tell you how we operate. Every single day, the president would get people because we're not disconnected with people. I have one phone here too. Or I would get from the party activists or a number of strangers on a daily basis. Strange people will send me a picture of a road. Or they would say to me, the persons who got this contract, they're different, they put different addresses. They incorporated like 2 companies with different addresses. They may have different surnames, but they're related. So when they bid, you don't know because you see 2 different addresses, you see 2 different surnames, they may get the work, but then it's the same family. People share that information all the time, every day, every single day, to the president, to myself, to ministers. I am bombarded with it. Every single day, when that comes in, I will call the minister and say, what's going on here? the minister would call his staff because we care. Their views matter to us. It's not like we could ignore them totally. And look, a couple days ago, some people sent me pictures of in Gaisuko. They said there was a tender out to clear the bush, and they're only getting 3 days' work. And the minister looked at it, and then he said to the people, why are you tendering this? You have staff here to do the work. Every single day that comes in. So what you saw there is just because a number of people might have complained to the president and did complain, and he's focusing on those issues to see that those people's voices are also heard. But this happens routinely in a government like ours because we are activists. I sit at Freedom House here. Every week after my press conference, you see a long line of people come, and they some complain about what's happening in the community, and we welcome this feedback. And this happens, the ministers on a daily basis solve these problems. So what you saw there is shocking to the opposition because they would never sit through this and focus on people's concern. But for us, it's not a shocking thing. Every day we hold people accountable. We hold a lot of people accountable, and it's through that arrangement that we've been able to be as effective as we are in implementing so many projects successfully and tackling the ones where we have problems too, because we believe we have a duty to do that. But that's not the prevailing condition of the state of contracting. So you notice every week when they talk about contractors and corruption, it's TPU that comes up. They don't talk about the 40, 50,000 contracts that have been done changing the landscape of this country. You just drive across Guyana and you see it. It's the poor. That's it. They go back to the same thing. Now, did they come up again with, families and people not doing this and stuff? Let me remind people that of the 5% or so that are not done on time or done shoddily, or you have some elements of corruption, we didn't sweep this under the carpet. The president didn't sweep this under the carpet. When I met with the permanent secretaries and the REOs and the heads of corporation and the people who procure for the army and police at the convention center, I issued a release later. And here are the things that we mentioned to them. That's in I just pulled down one news story. I think this might be from, I don't know which agency is it, but it was from the DPI. DPI has sent out a press release. And let me give you some of the things I raise. So when they raise this stuff, it looks like laughable because we've been saying this ourselves. So number one, Jagdeo addressed the misuse of contingency sums set aside for projects, stressing that those resources are subject to approval and not for the discretionary use of engineers. Number one, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Two, Jagdeo noted that some contracts included unnecessary items such as vehicles and computers, which inflates costs by tens of millions. He warned against that happening. Number three, there are few cases where several members of one family may have companies registered with them, and they all bid for contracts. I urge caution on the part of the accounting officers. People have to look at it. You have to be vigilant, I said about that. spoke about condemned instances where bribes are being solicited to expedite payments for completed work, urging agency heads to remain vigilant against that. That's number 4. So then the one about potential, number 5, potential manipulation of the 3-court system. I pointed out how that could happen and said to the accounting officers that they have to put in place a transparent system that it's not manipulated. Number 5, this is 6, restrictive tendering should be limited, and the MPTAB should be very sparing, only on exceptional circumstances, give restrictive approval for restrictive tendering. I spoke out against sole sourcing, departure from the standard bidding document, the conflict of interest where staff of some RDCs, etc., have contract, they have companies and they're working for the RDCs. We have had to make some adjustments in Region 8, as you saw. Penalties for late and shoddy work. This is all what we said. It's in the public domain. Where you think they would have even acknowledged that? Where would you have had a government like under APNU acknowledging this? And they were the most profligate and corrupt government, venal government ever that we've had. You ever saw anybody say to the permanent secretaries or anyone that these things are happening and therefore you should be vigilant? We did this a few weeks ago. So them mentioning this back now as though they discovered it, it's not nothing. We've been looking at this all the time and talking about it. But they want to make it look, but this is only happening in limited cases. And so we are happy when people actually send in information to us. So this here, for weeks I've gone through this here. I've shown how the procurement system has improved. I've asked you to go between the period 2015 to 2020 and find on the MPTAB website any contract that was awarded by APNU. The law required them to post it there. They never posted a single thing for the 5 years. Not a single thing was posted for 5 years in breach of the law. Every single contract that's awarded by MPTAB is there from 2021 to now, and the form of tendering. So if it's sole sourcing or competitive tendering, and the price of the the contract sum and the name of the contractor. So there's nothing to hide here. You can go there. You may disagree with who got the work, but at least you can see who got it. You don't even know who got the work because they used to call in people and give them the work. So this here, attempting one, so the first, going back to the 3 points, we lack planning. That is why the president's engagement with the public, with these under limited circumstances with a number of people, only about 40 projects, that showed incompetence and lack of planning. We are buttressed by a strong track record. There is the most competent government that has moved the needle all the way to the other end. From incompetence and dodo-ness, it's not to make, that's the best way to describe them, because I can't. It's almost like find another a synonym for being like dodos, because that's what they were. Nothing like happened in the government. To now you have vibrancy. So competence has been demonstrated. In every ministry, you'd see every minister going through their programs. And we have competent ministers and competent permanent secretaries. We have people of every race as ministers and permanent secretaries. Because in the past, you know what they did? They removed all of the Indo-Guyanese who were there as permanent secretaries. So that is one. Number two, we're not in control. The president is fully in control. We're in control. And we're so much in control that we're not only focusing on the 95% that's done. We want to ensure that this group, that the ones that are not done on time, that they too are done in time, based on what we hear from the people, what the complaints that we get. And so what the president was doing is a long list of people who've sent complaints. Oh, we see the road awarded, they dug up the road, but nothing is happening. Responding to that. And sometimes public officials express frustration that things are not being done at the pace at which we want. But that's because we care as a government. I'm coming back to the point. That's the reason behind it. And then corruption. So I think I've dealt with all of the issues there. The three things that they're trying to make it look like, oh, we're not in control. We're really in control. That's why the president could have had that meeting. And it's not a reflection what was done there on the government. You have ministers who, if you were to go into their meetings, you will see how much they push their staff to. And if you should hear about the daily private engagements we have, but this is called tough love. That's how we work, it's tough love. So there's no daylight between the minister and the president or anything like that. We believe in our ministers and their competence. It's just that tough love, that's how we work. Because we do that, there are a ton of people out there who depend on us to do that. There are a ton of people out there who don't have a street or didn't get their pension on time, who are worried, and they contact us, and we can do two things. We can just, like APNU, don't care, don't ignore it, or we can get frustrated and call down everybody and say, why didn't this man get his pension? Which I did sometimes. I call minister, call the office at Enmore, or something like that. Why does he have to go 3-4 times? This happens daily. And because people believe we will actually care, they come with their concerns to us. They go to the president, they go to ministers. So that's a great position to be in, where people trust you, that you will try to do something about this. And some of these people who have multiple contracts now too, they are, every day we are finding out more and more about them, because it's very hard sometimes, especially when they don't have the same address or the same name. But we're going to get to them. So I just want to deal with that issue, because the opposition loves to find that distraction from their own incompetence, uselessness, and their own track record. And they want to use the president engagement to serve that end. Let me deal with APNU a bit first, yeah, maybe. So last week, I pointed out that APNU, and particularly the PNC, had changed its position on the cash grant for people abroad. And then they blamed me. They said I was lying on them after they said the people should not be eligible. And I pointed out that in their press release, they criticize the president-elect of the United States of America, President Trump. So this is what they said again. Let me read it back to you last week, what I mentioned here and what was in their press release. This is it here. However, VP Jagdeo at his last presser on Wednesday deviously misled his audience into stating we are totally opposed to the idea, as this narrative best fits his Trumpian style of deception and fabrication. So they're saying Trump is a man who deceives and fabricates. So lo and behold, if you go on their page now and you see the same press release, they've changed it a bit. They've edited the press release now. So the same sentence reads, however, VP Jagdeo at his last presser on Wednesday deviously misled his audience into stating we're totally opposed to the idea, as this narrative best fits his style of deception and fabrication. Trump gone from it. They edited it out after I pointed this out, that they would find it very hard now as the political party to say that the President of the United States is a liar and a fabricator and deceives people and all of that. So imagine they edited it out, altering historical records. So this is how the PNC works. It just gives you a little insight into how they operate. The deceptive bunch is right there at Congress Place. So someone reading this today would say, oh, it was Judge Jagdeo they were speaking about, but they compared me to Trump. They said I lie and fabricate like Trump. So I hope that the media will pay attention to this. And I hope it's because this media here loves to give them a free pass. Maybe because they're so useless, so I can understand that. But even me, if I were in the media, I just don't want to write about useless people all the time. But sometimes we need to call them out on the lies that they peddle. And this gives you a little insight into their mindset, how they would lie one week and then change their views next week and present it as their original view. They've done this so many times before. So the PNC had their general counsel, I think, and they're engaged in pathetic deception of their people again. They want to retake government. Now, I look at the picture, it wasn't a very inspiring bunch to take back government with that showed up there, because it's the same people who were engaged in all sorts of corrupt and unusual activities, who had great perks in the last government that showed up there. Obviously, they remember the perks fondly. And so they showed up, and it was a large gathering. And the key thing, the highlight of it was to celebrate Hamilton Greene's 90th birthday. Now, Hamilton Greene himself has a long track record of rigging elections, or helping to rig elections. In fact, he said they should have rigged the elections to stay in power in 2020. He justified that just recently. So this is their celebrated mentor, who unapologetically believes that you must rig elections to stay in power. He said they made a mistake in 1992 and they made a mistake again. And then they put out a release to say that they made calls for the Guyana Elections Commission to introduce biometrics for the next year's poll. So you can't, clearly, I think something is wrong when they call to introduce biometrics. What do you think the fingerprints that we all had to give to Jacob were? That's biometrics too. You know, that part of the biometrics. They want us to introduce biometrics. The picture that they have of you on the folio that the presiding officers have, your name, they have a picture next to you, your name. So when you come into the polling place, they can see the picture of the person. So you can't be too ugly and claim you're a beauty queen there. They have your picture. And the thing is that it's there. That's biometric too. They're calling to introduce biometrics. What do you think all of those things are for? And so I wonder if they think that they don't biometrics now and that's what they're fighting for. They may have it wrong. So clearly there are robust systems in place to prevent people who may be on the list but not present in Guyana or dead from voting. And that was demonstrated even in the last elections. You recall at the end of poll on the 2nd of March of 2020, President Granger issued a statement and all the international community that polling day went exceedingly well in the country. We should be proud of it, etc. The trouble started was when Mingo tried to tabulate the votes now for Region 4. It wasn't not anything on polling day. Not a single complaint that people who should not have voted, voted. APNU didn't complain. They signed all the statements of poll across the country. The ones that disappeared now, they signed them. That not disappeared from us, but from them. They can't produce now. So, not a single complaint about that. Polling day activities. The theft was taking place after polling day, when they had all the statements of poll, but weren't adding from the statements of poll, was adding from a spreadsheet that they created on their own, that we challenge. So, this is all pure nonsense. It's pure nonsense, as though something happened in 2020 that caused them, where people who shouldn't have voted, voted, and that caused them to lose power. It's not so. It's not so. The polling place is a robust environment. You have police presence, you have every political party has a polling agent here. They can object, they look at the names, they can tick off, etc. The tally sheets, they know how many people have come in. And that has been the case. And so of the 660,000 on the list, because we have continuous registration, only 460 voted. Those were the ones who were legitimate voters. They have not been able to prove a single case of voters impersonation, although they made that point subsequently. So that's the first thing. Clearly, they're calling to introduce biometrics, but we already have biometrics being used in the polling places. What we were saying that they may need to enhance the biometrics. So the second thing is that they said in their press release, the leader said every child in Guyana knows that the PPP is giving every Tom, Dick, Harry, Lal, Spanish, Chinese, and Bangladeshis national ID cards, having removed the strict requirement to obtain a birth certificate and the verification of an eligible voter. You recall they were asked when they said we were registering Venezuelans to give evidence of this. Not a shred of evidence so far. So that's the next question could be for Norton. If you can say that every child knows this, you must know it too. So you need to tell us, give us a couple of examples which Bangladeshi got a national ID card or anyone else. Now, people, people can register if they're Commonwealth citizens and they live here legally for a year. That's in the Constitution of Guyana. We had a lot of people from Nigeria and maybe India and other places, they can register to vote. That's in the Constitution of Guyana. So that's a different matter. They don't need a national ID by virtue of being Commonwealth citizens, if you read the section of the Constitution. But this is a blatant lie again. If you can't be honest with your own people in your general council, in the leadership of the party, and you lie to them like they lied to their supporters, how can you craft a winning strategy? You're fooling them once again. And this was his speech to his own people. It's not like he was even trying to score political points by making this outside, You have to be honest with your own people. And he wasn't even honest, Norton, with his own people. It's a blatant lie again. And he's peddled this. And then they go on to say, biometrics without a clean voters list will not allow for free and fair elections. It is therefore imperative that we have a clean voters list in which the existence of persons on the list is verified and it is established that they are eligible to vote. Now, you can only get on the list if you're eligible to vote. So someone needs to tell Norton again that the Constitution of Guyana says if you're Guyanese 18 years and above, you're eligible to be on the list and to vote. You can register and you can vote in Guyana. It doesn't, we remove the residency requirement, but you cannot vote if you're not resident in Guyana from abroad. You have to come home and go to the area where you're at and vote there if your name is on the list. That is what the Constitution says. And the Chief Justice has already ruled on this when they tried to remove people's name through a house-to-house exercise. This has been tested in the courts already, and he keeps peddling it. How could this a clownish thing that they're eligible to vote? Anybody is on the list would be eligible to vote once you reach the requirement. On the voters list, you Guyanese and 18 years. It's not Norton or Jagdeo that determines this. It is the Constitution of Guyana. But again, and this is the nonsense. And then he goes on to vilify and try to bully Claudette Singh. This is a typical PNC behavior too, trying to bully Claudette Singh. Oh, she votes with the PPP. The PPP is not in the commission. There are commissioners representing the government and commissioners representing the opposition. But they want Claudette Singh to do like what Patterson did. Claudette Singh was a judge, and it was Claudette Singh who vitiated, those are her words, the elections when APNU agreed with us, the PNC, PPP, everybody agreed that we'll go to Parliament and pass a law that you can only vote with a particular document. And so the elections were held and people were voted. All the parties agree, we unanimous support. And then Claudette Singh, the PNC then, after they lost, turned around and challenged it and said it was unconstitutional because if you don't have an ID card, you can vote with a passport or you can just swear right, that you're the person and get that a form and you can vote as a Guyanese. So Claudette Singh ruled it was unconstitutional and cut short the PPP's term. They agreed with the law. We agreed with, passed it unanimously. They lost the election, turned around and challenged the law and Claudette Singh. They didn't say that about Claudette Singh at that time. That Claudette Singh was voting. We didn't say that she was voting with APNU or she was a judge, a pro-APNU judge. We accepted the results, the court ruling. We lost some period in government and we went back to elections. People don't remember this history. And because Claudette Singh is voting for clean elections now and is standing up for any attempts to violate the law, you think Claudette Singh can, as a former judge, a respected judge in this country, after the Chief Justice has ruled that you can't remove people from the list, it would be unconstitutional, will go and remove people's name from the list or try through biometrics to disenfranchise them again, because she herself ruled that it was the use of a particular set metric or biometric on an ID card that led to her vitiating the elections. You think she would act in an unconstitutional manner? She will not act. It's not about supporting the PPP or APNU. It's about what is right, what is constitutional. She would follow the law. That's how she is. She's done this all the time. And if you're trying to bully her, like at the protest, to get her out because you want in there another Patterson, like the Patterson before. He was a judge too, but he agreed to do something unconstitutional. He was himself appointed unconstitutionally. And then the CCJ had to rule, and he had to be removed on the matter. So this is an attempt to bully Claudette Singh, and that's how APNU works. And then all of these misleading, very misleading statements from people like Vincent Alexander. They sound like they want fair elections. You know, we're all for systems to ensure elections are fair. But they want to frustrate the process. I saw even AFC came out now, the WPA, and said, we don't mind elections being delayed beyond the constitutional time to allow for biometrics. But you have biometrics. You know what will happen? They think they will set a trap for us. We want elections. We don't want a single day beyond what is constitutionally given to the PPP. We don't want a single day beyond that. Because the next day they will say illegal government. You know, the same people, these same people will say that. They would agree to one thing and then say something else. So this is a little trap that the WPA, the defunct WPA, been trying, hopefully think that we'll fall into. We don't want extra time. We want the elections to be held on time. We want international observers to be here. We want the list to be, all the dead people from the list to be removed. We want the political parties to put robust polling agents in the polling places themselves. We want full compliance with the new ROPA. We want the statements of poll to be published before the tabulation. All of that we want, because those changes have been made now. We want the elections on time, because I believe they want to delay. They're not ready. They think that somehow, miraculously, if you delay the elections by introducing, they want to go back and do fingerprint for everybody again. So by the time you go back, that's like a house-to-house exercise. You know, it takes 6-8 months to get that done. By the time you process it, they have to be ready. GCOM has to be ready they should have been ready by March 2nd, because that's when elections were held. But I actually said August, because that's when the president was sworn in. But they have to be ready by that time to say to the president, You can call elections, whenever you wish to. So that's really 8 months away. And so they are hoping to kill that timeline. And then guess what will be the next stage? Oh, the government is illegal. Let's have a transitional government. Let's have an interim government until the elections are held. We know their play cards so well. They telegraph, like when you hold a ball in a particular way and the batsman could see your fingers from, where it's going to turn. So they're so real transparent in what they're coming up with. That's why all the big hullabaloo about biometrics. They don't want these elections now. And they're using this as an excuse, biometrics and clean lists, to get away from that, or hopefully to achieve that end. And then they'll come say, power sharing. Let's share power, or let's have a transitional government. We've seen this before. Not going to succeed. Now, let me deal with the AFC, so that's PNC. So I made this point, and I don't know, some of the so-called, no, I shouldn't say independent, so-called independent media or the private media don't seem to go ask the AFC any tough questions. Again, because it could be because they think they're going nowhere. It's a useless bunch. But they don't ask the searching questions. And I said to you before that anytime you confront people like Nigel Hughes with a question, they operate in controlled environment. So in the courtroom, you can prepare for it. You know that the other man can't argue with you because he's in the box, and the judge will tell him, only answer the questions that you're asked. And therefore, they're not prepared to be challenged on inconsistency of their positions. Because whatever you say, your track record in politics always would come back to haunt you. And he has so many baggage from the past, or so much baggage from the past, that they would haunt him all the way into next year and forever, I think. So every time he's asked a question, he sounds uninformed or not prepared, because I think even in his own head he's conflicted. So you recall the question about, I didn't see him go to last week, the last press conference, they told me, because I think he might have been was expecting to be asked how much money has he earned from Exxon since he started working with them. So, and whether his party being in parliament with the right to vote on legislation, including the one soon that will come to parliament, doesn't constitute a conflict of interest. So I think he wanted to avoid that question, but I hope by this week he would have calculated all the years, and so he'd be able to give a figure now of how much. So the Guyanese public can transparently know this. No other leader of any political party is on Exxon's payroll. So he is a leader of a political party that wants to be president, then you should tell the people of this country. If you respect the people of this country, including your own members, you should tell them how much money you have earned from Exxon. And then let them make their own judgment whether you will defend their interests. Not that they have to make any judgment. He said it openly. He will defend their interests above that of Ghana. So the second question was whether he'd apologize for their attempt to rig the elections, the AFC's complicity in the attempt to steal the last elections. So he tried to obfuscate the issue by steering it in another direction, by dealing with minutiae, thinking he is very clever, or give me specifically what you want me to apologize for. You know, that is transparent to anybody who has any street sense or know when a man is hedging, that he doesn't want to speak the truth. So now, after the issue came out, he went on a program. I think he got a little hot under the collar because he was criticized for it. That was refusal to apologize for their attempt to steal the election. His party, the party that he heads now, was attempting to steal the election, and that without that, there's no decency. You can't peddle decency in politics and then want to hang on to the baggage of the past. So he went on another program, hurriedly did, I think, another interview with someone, and this is what he said now. He needs to do a study, a review, as to whether they tried to steal the elections. It's like, imagine, he has to think we are really stupid as a country to even say that. He didn't know that 33 is the majority of 65. He didn't know that. The CCJ ruled that a long time. He can go down the long list. I have a package that I printed out today of all the international observers, the CARICOM recount report, what they said, the details of it. He was blank all throughout that, from 2020 to now. He lost all of his memory, his ability to retain any information. He was locked away from sources of information in these past 4 years. Didn't see anything. The blatant attempt of Mingo to rig the elections. He didn't read the CCJ's ruling. He now needs a review, a study to see if they actually tried to rig, to justify stealing the elections, the AFC. Didn't see what his wife said, didn't see what Ramjatan said. He needs a study to determine, and then he will determine whether they have to apologize or not. This could only happen in a country like Guyana, where people get a free pass. This could only happen here. This guy really believes that we are fools in this country. Every child knows that. Like, Norton was saying, every child knows. Every child knows that they were part of the plot to steal the elections. Wouldn't answer the question about the SOPs. Wouldn't answer any question, but they need a study now. Like the PNC needs a study of the PSA that they signed. If they get back into office, they will do a study to see what's wrong with the PSA. The same thing. This is just something. Then, the same Nigel Hughes, he went to join a PNC protest outside of GCOM, and they were calling for Claudette Singh to resign, bullying Claudette. So he wasn't even sure about his position on that matter, but he was part of the same protest, and then was asked by a reporter a question, and he said, GCOM is an independent body. And they must not take political directions. And there you are outside a political party protesting to bully GCOM and bully Claudette Singh into taking a position that you want. He didn't see the irony of it, the inconsistency of it, that he's out there saying with a bold face, oh, GCOM is an independent body, must not take direction from any political party. And you're outside of GCOM as a leader of a political party, cussing down Claudette Singh and trying to bully her into taking a position that you want, that is unconstitutional in any case. This is the inconsistency here again. But in the same interview, I think he got, because the apology question is hitting him hard. So, because people see how duplicitous he is on the matter. So he has, in this interview, he's gone back to the same old PNC rhetoric. You remember the crumb earring thing and all of that. So listen to what he says here. Has anybody apologized for those 1,200 African males that disappeared? Now, I don't know where 1,200 African males disappeared in Guyana. This used to be the PNC propaganda that they all peddle. And imagine in 2024, this guy who's talking about decency in politics and being truthful and arguing about, politicians have to change and work for the good of the country, could repeat a blatant lie like this and expect to get away with it. He will only get away with it because of a media that is just sleeping basically. Starbuck News did the entire, I had a look for 4 years, or I think from 2002 to 2006, what they call the trouble period. They found about 400 people who were killed. Some were not even killed, some are still alive, but that they claim were killed. They went through each newspaper report. Look at the Starbuck News, what they did there. They found that in the 400, you had victims of the criminal who APNU was supporting. The APNU was supporting. Nigel Hughes was a lawyer for many of those people who killed babies like at Lusignan, shut up the babies and stuff like that. He was their lawyer. The Starbuck News found they were killed. Policemen was included in the 400. The victims of the crime were included. And over 100 and something were Indo-Guyanese of the 400. Over 100 and something were Indo-Guyanese. Where did he get 1,200 African males disappear? Someone should ask him for the list of this. Where did you get that from? Which document? This is the old PNC racist talking point. It's a dog whistle for racism. And he is doing this in 2024, November of 2024, and getting away with it because of people in this country. And he went back. When he's cornered and flustered, they go back to the same old rhetoric. So the whole facade disappears, all the facade of decency and speaking in an erudite way and all of that. And then you see the ugly face of racism and all of that coming out back. Where did he get the 1,200 African males who disappeared under the BP? It's a lie. It's a lie, and they're hoping that this set of lies again will carry them through in the future. People are wiser now, they question things. And so everyone should ask him. I hope that's the next question for him. Where did you get the 1,200? And share with him the Starbuck News study that they did. Share with him and say, where did you get this from? What was the source of your information? This is, I don't want to go through all of the other things, the old rhetoric from the past, you know. He said, we have never had a single minister, party official, nobody in the AFC associated with the killing of a citizen of this country. Well, don't be so sure about this. Don't so be so sure about it. We have, there are two persons who were killed. Mr. Schultz, just find out. I can't remember the name of the other one. You just find out where they were killed. Schultz, and I will get you the name of the other one, where they were killed. And so, Nigel in the same crime period, he didn't say a word about removal of evidence from the gas station. The gas station in Buxton, that he removed from the scene. So, same old PNC. The facade of decency and change in politics has just disappeared now when cornered. And that's what we said. He is not new. He was part of the old politics, the old AFC politics of dividing our people while claiming to be multi-ethnic, of being corrupt, that is the politics of the AFC. The politics of corruption, and they claim that they're the most decent people in the world. This is what the AFC does. So, that's what went on at the press conference. Now, also, Sticky Finger Patterson speaks about the, it irks me every time this man speaks, and not because he speaks a lot of nonsense, but it's just the bold-facedness. After facing all of these issues, so he said the PPC is not doing its work. If the PPC was doing its work, he'd be in jail by now, in the period when APNU was there. Because you remember, well, he still might go to jail because he's charged now for that project, what we believe is a corrupt project, the award of the contract for the feasibility study of the bridge and some others. So he speaks about, he gets great coverage in other places, some news source and other places like the Stabrook. So billions being spent on Powership could have been used for permanent GPL fix. So listen to this man. This man had the portfolio, did absolutely nothing. They killed the hydro, he lied about the price, didn't do anything, brought in some like old pieces of equipment for the Essequibo, a few things. They unconstitutionally spent money now after the elections to pay for a power plant that we had a hell of a time getting to work there, the Wärtsilä plant. Nothing in the 5 years, nothing, not major project on transmission, nothing. Our demand has grown now, and he is saying that, you could have fixed it. Well, we are fixing it through the gas to energy project. We're working on a big project that would solve this. But we have to get emergency power too. So guess what he says now? He says that so he gives some numbers that the sum of the cost Guyana will be paying because they had zero plans for our power sector. just for the rental of those two ships, Ghana will be 126 million per day and 46 billion per year. So I don't even want to go to the macro numbers. So guess what? If we are generating this power, if we had to generate, say, 75 megawatts of power, what will be the cost to the government for to generate 1 kilowatt hour in US cents? It's about 18 US cents to generate one kilowatt hour. When we take the first power ship with 7.6 cents plus the 13 cents for fuel, it comes up to 20.56 cents. So he's saying to rent the power ship will cost this, but he's ignoring if we had to generate it ourselves, is the difference. This is a clown type of analysis. You know, so people hear, oh, this is how much it costs to generate the power with the power ship or to rent it. So they think, oh, the rental of the ship alone. This is for the capacity and the O&M and the fuel. When you add the three, you get cost per generation. When GPL adds the cost for the three, they have to generate 1 kilowatt hour at 18 cents per kilowatt hour. For this, for the first ship, it's 20.5 cents. So that's the difference. And why is it 18 cents per kilowatt hour for us? Because we operate with fully depreciated equipment. So there is no capital cost to amortize. Because if you had to amortize the capital cost for the old equipment, then what happens? You would have had to add maybe 2 or 3 cents per kilowatt hour. So it's almost the same, nearly, that we would have spent to generate 1 kilowatt hour than we're buying it there. This one price is slightly higher, 9.5 cents here. So when you add the 13 cents, it works out to 22.5 cents per kilowatt hour. But that's not for the rental of the ship that you would have otherwise been able to generate the power. To generate the same amount of power or the GPL would have had a cost. He ignores that cost totally. So it sounds like a lot of money that we're paying just for rental. We're renting capacity and they're doing the O&M. And it's for 2 years so it's bridging power. It's bridging power until the gas to energy project comes on stream. It's bridging. So this is pure nonsense. We're selling it at 22, 23 cents per kilowatt hour because it depends on the category. But really, our cost of generation plus the transmission cost is nearly 30 cents per kilowatt hour. That's how we are subsidizing. I told you all earlier about the subsidy. So the price has not increased. People should know that 70 million US is subsidy is keeping their power bill at the same rate as 2020, although we've seen escalation in fuel costs. And secondly, that these are, you can't calculate rental of a ship as though you don't have a counterpart cost if you generate the same power. It's pure nonsense, but it looks like billions being spent on rental. So people say, oh, this government is wasting a lot of money. We're trying to get more power into the system because the demand has grown because of the development here and because you did nothing. You're an inept, useless minister who was busy just getting GPL and the others to buy gold jewelry for you, and rather than fixing the power situation. And he lectures people and lies about stuff. They my dear friend Rickford Burke, I think he is becoming even more desperate. He knows that there would be very little fertile air, or very few fertile airs in the Trump's administration for the lies and the racism that he has been peddling, the daily diet of it. And that maybe finally there'd be some reckoning for his criminal conduct here in Guyana by trying to extort people for money. So witness in the last week the transformation of Rickford Burke. We're no longer racist government, the PPP. Now we are consorting with the Chinese, the Russian, Chinese, Russian, and others to undermine U.S. vital national interests and to undermine Israel's ability to defend itself. The despotic anti-U.S. PPP regime in Guyana is now rushing to retain ex-Trump administration officials. That our own members and supporters are on the FBI investigation for funding of international terrorism. They're through Hezbollah. So that's his new mantra. So he believes that one, the Trump administration will be concerned about these issues now. And so he shifted his narrative from us being racist to now consorting with Chinese and Russians to undermine U.S. vital or strategic interests, and secondly, with terrorist organizations. Now, if I remember correctly, there is only one political party that had one of its former members of parliament charged for terrorism in the United States of America, extradited there for trying to blow up the JFK airport, and who died in prison there. And that person was a PNC member of parliament here in Guyana. So if anybody is linked to international terrorism, it has to be the PNC that Rickford Burke supports. And he was actually extradited, and I don't think extradited, they snatched him, took him there to the US, put him before the courts, and was placed in prison for trying to bomb the JFK airport. People forgot that. But if you're linked to any international terrorism, then it got to be the PNC, not the PPP. We condemn terrorism across the world. And secondly, talking about despotic anti-PPP regime. So I want to recall what took place in 2020. And on March 9th of 2020, this is a mere, I think 7 days after the elections here, this is what came out from U.S. Senator Marco Rubio, who is now going to be the US Secretary of State. He said, the completion of a peaceful, free, and fair electoral process in Guyana is in the best interest of the country, as well as of all freedom-loving nations in our hemisphere. Following a marred vote tabulation on March 2nd, the presence of international electoral observers and representatives of all political parties must be guaranteed. This was after they tried to throw us out and from observing the tabulation, and they were trying to throw the international observers out of the country. You remember the ill-fated attempt by the Minister of Foreign Affairs at that time to throw the international observers out. And when they called in these fake bomb threats to get rid of people from observing the tabulation. This was on March 9, 2020. Rubio was very much aware of what took place. So when you say that we have a despotic PPP regime now, I think he'd be very familiar with the outcome of the last elections and who tried to steal the elections, because later Rubio and the others also wrote President Granger to say, you must allow the return of the observers for the recount after they refused to allow the Carter Center to return to observe the recount. And they did not want anyone else to come in, using COVID as the excuse. And another statement came out from Rubio's office to speak of, to say they must guarantee the return of the electoral observers. And then this was from Rubio's account itself. Senator Rubio joined a number of other senators in releasing a statement encouraging authorities in Guyana to begin a democratic transition of power that reflects the results of the March 2nd elections. This was saying, you gotta leave office. So, I can read a bit more about what Rubio was part of too. Recent reports suggest questionable maneuvers by interested parties designed to continue forestalling a final declaration of results, which members of the press say indicate a defeat for the incumbent government. President Granger should honor the will of the Guyanese people and concede. This is from Rubio and the others. So if you think you're going to peddle the lie that may have found some receptive ears about we're undemocratic and we rigged the elections in 2020, these were people, Senator, I see here a statement by Rick Scott, who was just running to the Senate, but he's a senator. This is a statement by him in 2020. It says, Guyanese authorities must respect the will of the citizens and courts. Stealing elections would result in nothing but isolation. This is stealing elections. This was directed not to us, to APNU, stealing elections. Guyana's future is bright, but only if it remains democratic. So, if good luck work, because these are people who are very, very familiar with APNU's attempt to steal the last elections, because they helped with the preservation of democracy in Ghana. Secretary of State Pompeo, he was part of the effort to preserve Ghana. And I have comments from tons of other people from the US administration, but also from CARICOM leaders that I'm going to put in all a package and send over to Nigel Liu's office. So as part of his study on whether they tried to rig the elections, he'd have all of those, have all of this information. I can even send him copies of our SOPs if he didn't see them before. So Burke and the others are running desperate. They've lived on lies and misrepresenting what takes place in Guyana. That we're the only government, the only party in this country that's working for country and people, all of our people. And we're the only multi-ethnic party. We're the largest party and the only multi-ethnic party in this country. And for a not large of every occasion that they have had, they've tried to distort that picture. They're not going to find too many receptive ears for their lies, because we'll take every step through lobbyists or whoever else to make sure that the truth prevails. Truth, that's all we're interested in, truth. We're looking forward to a good work. We had a good working relationship with the Biden administration, and we are looking forward to even a better working relationship with the Trump administration. Senator Rubio, soon to be Secretary of State, wrote the Biden administration when they vetoed the loan to Guyana for the IDB for the gas to energy, the GISB's loan. He wrote the Biden administration saying this shouldn't happen. They should have never vetoed that loan at the IDB, and that was Senator Rubio. And so we are looking forward to working with the U.S. administration, the incoming one, as we have worked with the outgoing administration. We're very pleased also that Senator Rubio will be the Secretary of State, because he's very much aware of the issue with Venezuela. And that's a crucial issue for us. He's aware of the Venezuelan issue, and we expect strong solidarity from him and President Trump, the U.S. administration, on the Guyana-Venezuela border controversy, which is now before the ICJ. It was something that I saw. You notice the shift from Burke. He no longer speaks about racism here anymore. He shifted to Hezbollah now, and Russia and China and all kinds of stuff, hoping that people will, ignore it. Don't worry, Burke. I know you've had sleepless nights here. There. Let me say one last thing. We're opposed to this. The City Council giving waiver to this GT&T, these foreign companies, for their rates and taxes. It's ridiculous. They claim they don't have money. These are big companies. They have huge assets here. They're selling their assets, making tens of millions of US dollars in Guyana. They should pay their fair share of taxes at the City Council. Why do you have to give a foreign company that's flush with cash from selling their properties here that they got as part of the deal that APNU made with them in 1990, and you're giving them waivers? It's ridiculous. And nobody pays attention. What about the $6 billion that APNU owns? If it had been, or PNC owes the City Council, that disappeared. Trust me, had it been the PPP, and I keep saying this every day, every single day, the Starbuck News or the Kaichor News would have been on our case. Every single day, about decency in government and all of that. Not a word about it. They don't write about it. They don't even write much about this. They're going to give the mayor to explain some nonsense. We've made it clear. If you have a policy to give a waiver, then it must be a stated policy. People must not come into anyone's office there to negotiate a waiver. That's when money gets funneled to individuals and to Congress Place. That's how they raise money. Have a policy, announce it for everyone, and then they just go. It's applied when they pay their bill. And I believe that foreign companies should be excluded from any waiver of any of these things. The foreign-owned companies. Why should we be giving rich foreign companies that make a ton of money waiver of their taxes in the city when this is something that they sign up? It's not like part of a fiscal incentive. So when they have an agreement with the government, that's very different. These are property taxes. That's very different. That's it. So I don't understand. And they get a free pass with their money. Waste the money, do whatever they want with it. And it's all the mayors. The last one was useless too. No, couldn't be worse, but they're all the same. Useless ones. Yeah. Question. Yeah.
From Biograph Culture News. The ExxonMobil Guyana recently purchased 2 FPSOs from the ship SBM. Can you say if the leasing cost was included in that purchase? Was it discounted, or did they have to pay a different purchase?
I suspect that if they leased the purchase, so they would have had take account of some of the leasing costs. I suspect that would be so.
We want to clarify. I think the contract had said that Guyana would have had the option to buy the FPSO.
Yes, but that's when often in contracts you put an option, so you can buy it if you find that it makes sense, or you don't have to buy it, so then you persist with leasing it over a period. So that's how contracts are written, and people exercise options anytime during the course of the contract. But this also, people were complaining that maybe the asset base of Exxon, when you're leasing, the assets belong to the foreign company, another company, not ExxonMobil Guyana, or the local company that is made up of the 3 shareholders. So if you have to go against assets here, say the 600 million plus the 2 billion parent guarantee would not be enough, and you have to return to the assets to cover, say, an environmental spill or the consequential costs. Then if they don't own the FPSO, you can go after it. If they own it, that becomes an asset for you to be able to dispose of and recover money from. So I guess in that sense it's good.
Clarify another point. Do we now have to lease the FPSO from Exxon, or do we just have to pay back the money that they now put?
Yeah, but that's all part of the cost oil. It's part of cost oil. Every cent that goes into or is spent, it goes to cost oil. So it's just a basic question. I don't understand what.
If I know they would have to recover to pay the lease. Now that they're the owners, do we still have to lease it?
Not the ExxonMobil in Texas is as part of this consortium in Guyana. So they own the FPSO now.
I have 3 other questions. I'll list them one after the other. The first one is we saw Mr. Nandalal on Issues of the News give his view on the referendum. We know that you have said that you do not want to complicate the elections. Yeah. But can you give us a direct answer as leader of the party if you would support a referendum?
No, I made it clear about that is, I'm not going to get caught with that issue, which I think it's a non-issue at this stage. Right now, people are asking for a referendum. It's the people of this country can decide anything in the constitutional reform process that's coming up. For me, it's not a priority on the referendum. What Nandalal was expressing is not the view of the government, nor is a personal view. He expresses a personal view on the matter. And it's right also that even if you succeed in a referendum, you still have to have the other side agree to it. If they don't agree to the renegotiation, as per the contract that APNU signed, you're back to arbitration. You're back to court cases. So you can decide if you want to renegotiate, and you get a referendum to support you in the renegotiation, but they say, no, we don't want to. Then you have to go through the court process. So having a referendum doesn't deal with the most contentious issue, which the contract says that the only way you can have it solved amicably, if they to renegotiate the contract, is with the agreement of both parties. So that's where we are. It's all theoretical at this stage, for me. Theoretical at this stage, because you come back, and I think that is what he wanted to point out, that that's the hurdle that you still have to come back to after you go through all of this intermediary process. Would I love to change the contract to 2 to 10%, the royalty? The answer is yes, I'd love to have that happen. Would I like to get 75% instead of 52% of in the future, when all of the costs are taken into consideration of the proceeds? We'd love that. But the government in 2016 signed an agreement that says the only way you could have this amicably resolved is with the agreement of the two parties. The other side said, referendum or no referendum, they've already made it clear they're not interested in renegotiation. So it's not whether people want to renegotiate or not. We said it was a bad contract. We said we'll change every future contract, and we did it, like through the new PSAs. So I don't think it's whether you want better, what is at contention is whether we want better terms. Everybody has expressed that desire. It's the mechanism through which you get it. What a referendum will do is just to say, yeah, we all want better terms. You may have the support of the country behind you, but that brings you back to square one. That brings you back to square one, which is, how will it end up? In the courts, you lose a lot of momentum, and that's what we don't want to lose. So I think any sensible person would see this through. And it is one way of getting an issue. That's what I was thinking about next year. The opposition wants to latch on to something that will distract our attention from the elections, consistent with what I said before. They would love to see the elections delayed. GCOM is the only one that can prepare for a referendum or anything of that sort. We have time enough to deal with that after the elections. We have time enough to deal with all of those issues. But right now, GCOM must focus on one question, which is the holding elections within the constitutionally prescribed time frame. I don't want. I've seen traps set all around the place for delaying the elections. We're not into that now.
Thank you for your answer. Thirdly, we have seen the president, and many say he's done a commendable job by calling out the contractors and the ministers at a 5:30 meeting, and he reprimanded the contractors for poor oversight of these. The ministers are poor oversight of these contracts. Could we see a similar approach for the oil sector from you as chief policy maker for the sector, bring probably Mr. Rutledge and the ministers there and, question them about how they manage our resources?
No, I believe that we're making great advances in the sector. So let me list what has been done by the government of Guyana. So the ministry has worked well. We have passed a local content law that was never there before. 700 million of business this year to our local companies. Over 1,000 local firms have registered here. You know who they are. They're benefiting from this. Part of the local content law forces people to hire Guyanese. If you do it in breach, I spoke of that the last week about how companies are trying to go around that. We're frowning upon that. Because of this, they're forced now to put Guyanese in management, because you can only have 25% of the management as foreigners. 75% has to be Guyanese. They used to put all the Guyanese doing the menial jobs and no Guyanese in management. If they don't do that, they lose the local content certification. So it's helping our people to get more jobs, better paying jobs, because of that act that we in the PPP passed, that the APNU did not want to pass, that the oil companies said would cause them to shut down. They had to live with it. We're looking to expand the benefit. That's one. Two, we have now updated the law, the 1986 Act. Now, 1986 is a long time back. That is what we are managing the oil and gas sector with. That was the prevailing law. We have a modern law now. We're working on regulations to get that done. So great progress in that area too. Thirdly, we now are moving. We went to auction rather than first come, first serve basis. You know, that was controversial in the past. We have learned much more now about the auction, because we went to the first auction without any seismic or limited seismic. We're now recruiting firms to do the seismic, so that when we go to the next auction, we'll have more information, and then we'd have two documents that are in place now that were not in place when we launched the first auction, which were the new PSA that we have produced and the new law. So we've made advances there too. The new PSA, we promised that. We have put it in place. We've increased the fiscal terms significantly and also broadened it to allow us greater tools of management, more information, real-time information. We have now a dashboard, a real-time dashboard from Exxon, so we can see what's going on in offshore real-time. That has been done. We reformed the Sovereign Wealth Fund, removed direct charges from the fund. Every cent has to be appropriated. Great transparency in releasing information on release of the funds. We have strengthened all the environmental permits. So we're going good. We now have 6 FPSOs licensed. All were reviewed by international consultants along with us. We're on track to produce about 1.3 to 1.5 million barrels of oil per day by 2027. One of the steepest growths, so great advance in that area too. Some people don't like that, but it's happening. Many countries wish they could have done that. They can't even get investments to even do the exploration, much less to do that. We've been successful there too. We now have the gas to energy project that will come in on stream, 50 million cubic free of gas, and that would give Guyanese a saving of 250 million US a year when that project comes on stream. Great benefit there too. We're now looking to monetize the additional gas that are part of the new project that we're working on. So I can go down a long list of things that are moving forward in the sectors. When we have disputes, Exxon hears from us. They hear from us a lot when we have differences in opinion. It might not be live stream, but they do hear from us. And that was only one occasion when you saw a live stream, but a lot of that happens on a daily basis because we are a concerned government. I told you already, you think you would have gotten a Nagamoto to sit in at 8 or 5 meetings before you even go to tender for a project like the gas to energy project. He was busy rubber stamping, walking around the whole country doing nonsense. You think you would have had that? So we're very pleased with how things are going. Where we have contention, or that is a national contention, is over how much benefit comes to the country now. And that is as a result of the contract. So I don't see any need for anything like that to happen. We speak a lot. I express my views. I was very disappointed, I said, with the finalization of the second audit internally before it goes to Exxon, because there was a football between, like, moving back and forth between the ministry and GRA. So I intervened. Marcel asked me about this. I said, when are you going to complete it? They told me, the head of GRA said to me last week they did complete it, and now they have to write Exxon about it. So you do have some of those the sloth in the system where people don't move fast enough, but we deal with it on a routine basis. We don't wait to convene a meeting to do that. You pick up the phone and sort these things out. That's how an interested and active government works, a government that is alive and wants to get things done for people. And they're very complex things too. They're not like one issue that you have to deal with a day. You have to deal with maybe 60 different issues of varying nature. It could be environment, it could be oil and gas, it could be on the economy, it could be on just someone not getting their pension, or a police case where someone was stopped and harassed and they contact us too. And you have to deal with all of these things in a routine day's work. So, yes. And, yeah. You finished? Yeah, go.
Just before I pass to my colleague, I was finished, but I heard you mention the gas, the energy plant there. We're still getting a royal run around to get the feasibility study. I remember you sent us to some, we still get a royal run around, and we want to know if probably,
But could you see, that is, I'm not saying you are dumb, but that's like a dumb question. I'm not saying you, because I've explained 100 times before. This is, what we're doing here is not like how Elon Musk, for the first time, caught a rocket returning back, trapped it, and put it there. Around the world, there are hundreds of these projects built, and of bigger size and greater complexity. Here, people have laid hundreds of thousands of kilometers of pipeline on the sea to move gas. In Russia to Western Europe, a lot of that has been done. Nothing new with the technology. They can do that. Nothing new with the technology of putting up a power plant with a gas turbine. It's done routinely. NGL facilities are built routinely. The transmission mains are built routinely. So nothing wrong with technical feasibility study. Anything, it's technically feasible. Sitting just like here, you can talk about that technically. So the next thing is financial feasibility. When someone tells you that selling the liquids at current market value could yield $250 million per year, and our cost to amortize, the payment to amortize the pipeline, the NGL facility, and the power plant and the transmission main. It's $100 million per year. You have to say in 8 years' time, if we were to sell the NGL at local price, not that we intend to do it, if we were to sell it, we can pay back for the full project. Pay back for the project, not a cent from the treasury, not 1 cent to spend on the project. In 8 years' time from the sale of the liquid alone at current market prices in Guyana, if we were to solar that, you can pay back for the whole project. You gotta be crazy to even ask someone about financial feasibility. The next thing is that our project is going to the board of, I think, in a couple of days' time, to Exim board. They did independent financial and also environmental studies on the project. We did the environmental studies too. So environmentally sound, financially sound. Before they go to the board, they're lending a lot of money to the project. And people keep asking about this. That's why I'm saying that only in a country like this, you could get it, this obsession, because people don't deal with facts. They just deal with form. It's like a Pattersonian kind of analysis. It sounds erudite, where is the financial? If I give you the feasibility study, Glenlaw can't read it. Trust me, you wouldn't be able to read the projections or anything. You wouldn't even be able to read it, but it's this it's the same thing. Oh, you're not releasing these big contracts for the mining company. You asked me for a number of years. I finally got them to put them on the website. They put them there. I didn't see nothing that they found unusual. Not a single thing. They're on the website there. They were asking for the field development plans. The plans are there. You're asking for the environmental studies, we put them. You're asked for the contracts that we've signed with Exxon, we loaded all of them up. Nothing there. We even load up data on what's happening offshore, maybe with a time lag. That's why I'm saying, not you, but I know you get your directions and stuff like that, but people have to think through these things themselves too. They have to, when you write, you have to say, the numbers are, it's what drives projects like these. It's the numbers that drive the projects like these. And why do you think now that everyone wants to come and build the next phase? Because they see how feasible it is. All right, let's move on.
Dr. Jagdeo, good afternoon. Cordell Jones from Livewire News. Now, Sherwood Lowe recently outlined ambitious proposals for the PNC APNU, including promises of wage increases, utility subsidies, and social benefits aimed at improving quality of life in Guyana. Given these commitments, how do you evaluate the APNU's past performance in relation to delivering on similar promises during their time in office?
You see, first of all, I don't know the Sherwood Lowe, what role he has in policy making. It's like everybody get up in the APNU and they say one thing. So one man goes off, Marvin Williams say, we want nobody from abroad should get this grant. Another one said they should get half. It's confusion in their camp. So how can you be sane and believe anything that APNU puts on paper and says they will and say that they will do? How can you be sane having had the experience of 2015? I can take out their manifesto now. Today, I can take it here. You can go and look at it yourself. Every promise they made to young people, to the youth of this country, to people for jobs, taxes, everything. They just broke every single one of their promises. And they had no No apology about it. They've not apologized. They make it look today that they were super efficient. It was an inept government. And they even tried to steal the elections at the end. Democracy was at risk. Look at what they did in violation of the Constitution. In the short, I don't think even Burnham violated the Constitution as often as APNU did, the PNC did in that period, APNU and AFC, in that 5-year period. So I don't know what could Sherwood Low guarantee anything in any government. Sherwood Low doesn't even have a voice now. Nobody knows much about Sherwood Low. If you ask 9 out of 10, maybe 9.5 out of 10 Guyanese would not even know he exists or what role he has. People don't pay attention to that. It's the false promises. They lead a whole range of things. They've thrived on that. Racism and false promises. So every time we do something, they magnify it about tenfold. You have 1 duckling, we'll give you 10 ducklings. You know, somebody come in, it's just like crazy. Don't worry with Sherwood Low and the others. I didn't even know he said that because I see such outrageous things that they say they will do. You know, they can't. All right. Thank you very much.